Thank you for listening to Combination Feeding with Francesca and Melissa. Today, I am joined by Naomi Berkowicz, registered nutritionist and lactation consultant. We are going to talk about combination feeding. We're going to talk about Francesca and Melissa's experiences, and we're going to talk about explain, why the things happened, what happened to them, and so on and so forth, mainly about combination feeding. So, hi, Naomi. Thank you for joining us
Hi,
today.
Paula. Nice to be here.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned on the podcast, I breastfed. So, this is not a topic which I am super familiar with, but I know that there's a lot of people there that can relate to Francesca and Melissa. So, let's start by asking you, while you were watching the podcast, was there situation like a familiar thing that you see a lot in your profession?
Very common.
Okay.
Most people I see are giving formula, have given formula, even while they're breastfeeding. It's very rare that I actually see people when I first start seeing them because they're having issues are fully breastfeeding or giving breast milk.
Okay.
So most of my work involves a combination of breastfeeding, pumping, and formula.
Okay.
Yeah, very common.
Okay. And both of them actually, well, let's start with Melissa, because something that really marked me was that she has 4 children. And she said, at the 7-month mark for every kid, her supply started to dwindle. Is that because solids was introduced and then her milk started dwindling? Like, why did that happen at that specific time for every child?
It was interesting that it was at the exact same point. I would say probably, maybe it's TMI. It could be when your period starts, your supply can fluctuate depending on your cycle.
Okay.
So I can ask her that.
Yeah.
But, if a lot of moms find that if you have multiple children and let's say you are exclusively breastfeeding or mostly breastfeeding, a lot of people find that their periods kind of come back around the same time. So if it happened around that point, could have contributed to that. It is right after solids started. So if her kids liked eating food, ate a lot of food, and were breastfeeding less, some people are super sensitive to any changes in stimulation, whether it's pumping or breastfeeding. So if it was the same, like all her kids were eating more and were stimulating her less, or she was pumping less because they weren't eating as much, it's definitely possible that contributed, which can also contribute to the period coming back. It's kind of potentially all connected. Could also be like I remember she said, like, that's what my body does. And sometimes it is. So, so some people find that after a certain point, their supply dwindles or slows down. So if she wanted to maintain it, she would probably have to either put the kids back on and breastfeeding more often or pumping a little bit, because it's possible to bring supply back up. The other possibility is potentially the supply was normal and it does just generally decrease over time because the children are eating food.
Right.
So it could have been within the normal and could have been maybe fine, but maybe she felt physically like there wasn't enough milk, even if there was. So sometimes there's a distinction between feeling, your breasts are soft to the touch and it doesn't feel like there's milk in them anymore versus actually not having milk. Because after a certain point, everybody's breasts kind of go from those big hard balloons to those softer feel, and there's still enough milk. So I don't know, it can't go back in time and see, but if that's a concern, asking the questions and making sure the baby's gaining and having normal eliminations, that it might feel like there's less milk, but it still could be perfectly enough versus is it actually not enough? So that's a good time to get more information and find out. I've had people come later on in their breastfeeding journeys with those kinds of questions. You have to do a bit of detective work.
Yeah. And I remember, so for Melissa's case specifically, we were talking about, how at the hospital, depending on which hospital you give birth, but usually the healthcare professionals tend to push the breast, breast milk. You have to breastfeed, 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 breastfeed. Breast is best. And, Melissa was saying how she kind of fell into the pressures of breastfeeding and tried and this and that. But that once her supply dwindled, she turned to formula, to keep the calories in her children. So we've deduced that fed is best no matter how you feed your children. And then in Francesca's case, she was pumping at all hours of the night, and it was just not a sustainable lifestyle for her. So Melissa was explaining that she was a little bit pressured by the breast is best at the hospital, but Francesca wasn't really affected by that, and noticed that the CLSC nurse came to her house when Tessa was born and suggested to top up Tessa with formula on top of breastfeeding. Is that something that you think like that it's common? Because I don't know that I know very many CLSC nurses. Like, I know fed is best and the weight gain is super, super important. I just what I'm seeing are the pressures from the healthcare professionals, pushing breast milk and showing you how to breastfeed in order to successfully breastfeed versus suggesting formula right away. So I'm just wondering, like, if it were you, in that situation, what would you have advised?
Well, I look at the whole picture. Is baby gaining weight, peeing, pooping, generally healthy? Are they too sleepy? Are they, functional at feeding? We look at the basic health factors to determine, is everything okay right now or not? If things are going well and, baby's breastfeeding, then, we say, okay, like, sometimes we're working on latch or positioning and mom's in pain and we deal with that. And there's different things for that. But if things are going well, I would say continue. If things are questionable, then we still work on those other things, but making sure baby gets more food. So it's up to the parents to decide how they give their baby food. There's different methods. It doesn't have to be a bottle. And what to give. So we have the option of the parent expressing milk if they want to and if they can. There's the option of donor milk, whether it's someone you know or don't know. If someone has express milk and you want to use that, that's an option. And there's always formula, which again is a safe food for babies. So it depends on, the parent's ability to produce enough milk overall. Do they have access to donor milk, or do they choose or prefer formula? And all three of those options are perfectly great for, the vast majority of babies. So I don't say you have to give express milk, because if the parent's already breastfeeding and they're at their limit of time and energy, we're not going to insist on adding pumping on top of it. And then I always offer the suggestion: have you considered donor milk? And if not, you need to consider formula. If you can't pump enough milk and you can't get donor milk, you have to get formula. There's no question. There's no other option. And formula is food. So babies need to eat. But how they eat, what they eat, that is the most important thing, is that the parent is informed. That is the minimum. That is not best. That is required. So once that basis is covered, then we can deal with other things. The baby needs to eat. The baby needs calories. The baby needs energy. In the end, how they get it, as long as it's a safe food, that's the most important thing. Then we can work, if the parent decides, I want to continue breastfeeding and I want to increase my milk supply or whatever, then we focus on that. My minimum is, is that okay? Okay. My minimum is baby is feeding well, whether it's by breast or bottle. And then we can protect the milk supply and increase the milk supply if that's the parent's choice. If the parent decides, you know what, I like this combo feeding, great, we roll with that. And I teach them, in terms of if they want to breastfeed directly, if they want to pump, They want a formula feed. Whatever combo, we work in their lane.
So it's funny that you say that, because when I was listening to Melissa and Francesca's stories, and remembering myself, and then hearing my other friends who are like on the other side of the spectrum with the breastfeeding, um, it sounds like to me, which maybe would have liked to know before, what you're telling me is, whatever's most convenient for the mother, in the sense, like whatever works best for the mother, whichever way
Absolutely.
you decide to feed is the best way for your kid. So like Francesca was saying, her nipples were raw and blistered, and it hurt her, and Tessa took forever to drink at the breast. That wasn't sustainable for her because she wasn't sleeping. And so that made it difficult for her to take care of Tessa, because it was not manageable.
Right.
I think that it's really admirable that, she had no guilt when she was offered formula. She was like, okay, great, the end. That's it. I don't know in retrospect if I would have gone down that path. I would have probably pushed a little bit harder
Mhm.
just because of those pressures.
Mhm.
But I think it's really important to highlight what you're saying. Like, when someone comes to you with difficulty, they guide you down the road that they want, and then you facilitate that road, right?
Second question on my form after what's your name is what's your goal?
Exactly.
Feeding goal. So if your feeding goal, I have people come to me, mostly I work in the lactation space. Um, Most people coming to me want to breastfeed more, produce more milk. But I have people who say, I want to learn to combo feed. I want to learn to pump. I can give a bottle. I have infinite combinations of things that people want to do. And to me, everything is valid because it's not my baby, it's your baby.
Yeah.
And, you know, in 6 months, if you don't want to give solids and you guys want to be vegetarian, who am I to say, no, you have to eat meat or anything like that? What we feed our families is a very personal decision, and nobody should have judgment. It doesn't mean I'm not going to suggest things if I think it's appropriate. Um, but I'm definitely not going to, um,
Pose.
impose any sort of belief about breast milk versus formula. The science is there that they're not the same. That is not a question. They're clearly not the same liquid. Um, but as long as the parent
Mm.
is informed
Yeah.
and has been given all the choices with a clear mind, then you can be really confident and sure that you're doing what's best for your family. If you're doing things out of fear or out of, someone's sick or whatever, if there's any sort of complications and it's not what you want, then wait till things are cleared up to make any sort of decision. We don't always have time or choice. Sometimes if mom is sick in the hospital, baby needs to eat.
Yeah.
There's many different
Yeah. Combination.
reasons why things wouldn't work out the way you want. But, in my mind, Francesca's case, I see clear red flags of functional feeding issues. So if she was to say to me, oh, this is what's going on, well, I would look at the breastfeeding and not say that, it's going to fail. I would see opportunities to improve the breastfeeding. And she could have maybe decided to go along that route if it felt good, right? If it hurts, if it's taking forever, you're not going to do it. Nobody wants to do that. But if she had, let's say, decided to get help to see if breastfeeding could go better, and there were ways around it in terms of, you know, healing the nipples and getting a good latch and seeing why Tessa wasn't efficient, she may have decided to breastfeed more or not. But at least she would have had um, like the information. It's amazing that she didn't feel guilty. That's
Yeah.
not what I'm saying. But a lot of people feel pressure.
Yeah.
So as long as they have clear information about, okay, this is what's going on and this is why it hurts. This is why she's slow to feed. Then you can decide if you want to take path A, path B, path C to deal with it or not. And as long as everybody's happy and healthy, it doesn't matter which path you take, as long as it's the right path for you.
And I remember she said something like, she didn't even formula was just offered to her. And as a new mom, you kind of say to the CLSC nurse or the doctor or whoever is in authority medically, you just say yes
Yeah.
because you don't really know. Otherwise, it's your first kid, right? So I think in retrospect, it's almost better because she didn't know that there was another option. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? But again, whatever works for her, and that totally worked for her. And in Melissa's case, you know, the the pumping and I mean, it seemed like a lot of work when she was telling me everything she was doing, But again, it worked for her,
Mhm.
and I think that one of the advantages, for example, in seeing someone like you, and they do decide to take the combination feeding route, you can advise, when to pump,
Mhm.
how to pump, because again, no one teaches you these things. You can
No.
have one breastfeeding course at the CLSC, and then by the time you actually have to do it, I forgot everything.
And it's
Sorry,
also not real life.
it's not real life.
No,
You
that's
have a doll.
I've been to those
Yeah,
courses, and I was a lactation consultant when I did it, and
yeah,
where I was almost, and actually having the baby was a very different experience
right.
than the pictures on the screen.
Yeah. And I remember also when I had a bit of issues, I contacted a CLSC nurse and she came to my house again. And she physically showed me, like she put
Mhm.
Maya on my boob and I don't know, something just clicked in my
Yeah,
head and then it worked. And then my second was a breeze. Like
yeah,
you need a click.
yeah.
There has to be some sort of
So that's why the
mental,
in-person,
yes,
um, you know, visit from the CLSC nurse is essential, but also breastfeeding drop-ins and even sometimes seeing the doctor can be very helpful. So it's, all these pandemic babies where things were all virtual and we weren't touching people
mm,
and we weren't getting so close. I think it was very detrimental to new parents in a lot of ways, but
yeah.
feeding definitely suffered when people couldn't get that help.
Mhm.
Um, so but, even if things go perfectly, someone could still decide to combo feed,
Yeah.
even if everything's perfect. I
Yeah.
have plenty of parents who latching's going well, milk production's going well, and they don't want to do it fully or at all.
Well, it gives a little bit of freedom too for the mom, right? Like if
So
you're
it's values, it's cultural, it's your own personal decision, and as long as someone's happy doing whatever they want to do and they're confident in that and the baby's getting the proper type of
nutrients. Yeah.
formula and great.
Yeah.
That's amazing that you feel great about any choice, whether it's breastfeeding, bottle pumping, or formula or combo. They're all great choices, and they all need to be um, sometimes they need to be learned. um, they shouldn't feel forced. None of these choices should feel pushed on or forced.
Mm.
So, I personally, I have no problem with pumping formula, whatever, and I will help you and guide you through to make sure that it's efficient
Yeah.
and safe and pleasant.
Exactly. Pleasant.
Yeah, no, it should not be. I mean, it is a chore because your babies need to eat often. It's probably the hardest for me. The hardest part of motherhood
Mhm.
was at that time was feeding, but it shouldn't be like a dread every
Right.
time
Exactly.
it's coming.
Yeah.
Shouldn't dread.
Exactly. Um, I want to ask you what in terms of combination feeding, what are the top 5 questions that you get from your clients?
Can we mix breast milk and formula
Like
together
mix like
in the
in a
bottle?
oh really?
Yeah, that's a big question.
Oh, can you?
It depends.
Okay.
That do you want to know the answer?
Yeah.
Oh, you want to know the
I
answer?
want to
Okay.
know the answer.
If you're trying to get back to mostly breast milk, let's say we're on the path of we're increasing supply and we're trying to get off formula for parents' choice, then I generally recommend not mixing because we want to know if baby can take just the breast milk and it be enough. Because when you dilute it with formula and the baby doesn't finish the bottle, you have to throw all that hard work away. So, but if you know that you, let's say, have a certain amount of supply and it's less than baby needs, um, and your baby needs a certain amount per bottle feed and you're only bottle feeding, for example, then yes, you can combine it.
Okay.
We'd never, ever, ever, ever want to mix, let's say, powder or concentrated formula in the breast milk, because that's not how it's supposed to be made.
Okay.
That's too many calories. But it definitely is depends what your goals are and depends what the needs are. So yes, sometimes.
Yeah.
And no other times, I would say.
And on that note, I'm just coming back now because I had another question for you. I hear a lot what Francesca did with Tessa, and I hear that kind of everywhere a little bit, is that like topping up before bedtime. Like I'm going to breastfeed, or I'm going to whatever feed any way, and then before bedtime top up so they're really nice and full and tired and sleep better. Is that a true thing? Like when they're fuller, do they sleep better? Or
so yes and no. It's
okay.
there's probably most of these questions are going to be a little bit gray in the middle. So babies who drink from bottles tend to drink more, whether it's breast milk or formula. They drink more from the bottle, because it's probably easier, and there's more in the bottle than they might take from the breast.
It's like less work for them with their mouth.
Yes, but also we know that bottle-fed babies, breast milk or formula, drink higher quantities than directly breastfed babies. So because of that, they might be fuller and sleep a bit longer. But that is not a guarantee. There are formula-fed babies only on the bottle who wake up just as often as breastfed babies.
There's no secret sauce. There's no science.
No. Some of it has to do with the temperament of the baby.
Yeah.
What their capacity to how much milk they can take. How fast or slow their digestion is. Other factors, reflux, other things that really affect feeding. So, if you found that and it works for you and your baby, that's fine. As long as the baby's getting enough calories over 24 hours, it doesn't really matter how it's divided. But, if you try and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean something's wrong.
Right.
It just means you have a normal baby and not a unicorn.
Got it. Okay. What is the second question that you get asked all often?
Okay. So how much breast milk is worth it?
Worth what?
Worth working for, giving. Like if someone doesn't have a full supply to feed their baby and gets a quarter of the baby's needs from breastfeeding or pumping, how much milk is worth it?
That's funny. That's a funny question.
Well, it's because people are like, well, is it worth it even to give my milk if I'm not giving a full supply? And my answer is, if you're happy doing it and it's not causing you any sort of emotional or mental distress, and you can either breastfeed or pump it, and it's, a drop is worth it. We say a drop is worth it.
Yeah.
So whatever you can give your baby is perfect.
Okay.
Whether it's 1 ounce a day or 35 ounces a day.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. So if that's what you want to do and you want to give breast milk, any amount is worth it.
Okay, what's number 3?
Number 3 is formula higher in calories than breast milk?
I would assume so.
No. Formula is based on breast milk because we want all formula manufacturers are trying to recreate breast milk. So it's actually the lowest calorie version of breast milk. At its basis, because breast milk changes.
Yeah. Depending on what you eat.
No.
Oh, I know nothing.
The calories don't change depending on what you, the composition changes.
Right.
But not the overall calories.
Got it. Okay.
So breast milk and formula at the basis have the same amount of calories. Breast milk can actually increase in calories depending on the timing of the feed and what point of the feed.
Wow.
So formula is not higher calorie milk. We can make it higher calorie by changing the concentration.
Got it.
But normal, regular formula without any, math involved is equal in calories to breast milk. Okay. Yeah. So if someone's telling you you need to give formula because your milk is not high in calories enough, that they're misinformed. If the doctor says switch to formula because your baby's not gaining enough on your milk, it's not a calorie issue; it's a quantity issue.
Right. It's because you're not producing enough milk. It's not because
the baby's not drinking enough volume.
I understand.
It's not because milliliter per milliliter. It's too low in calories. So the person giving you that information is likely misinformed.
Right.
And it's usually a volume issue, not a calorie issue.
And one last question. For me, like I did pump a little bit, just for the odd freedom of like going out for dinner and,
Oh, really? You want to be a person?
Yeah, but that was like, it never happened.
Okay.
Almost. I was tied to my baby for a long time. Anyway, the pumping for me was so like time consuming, and I had to like do it one at a time. And it was just, for me in my head, it was just not worth it. I'd rather just slap her on the boob and feed her and call it a day.
So that's what a lot of people feel like.
Yeah.
Pumping these days, even since I've had my kids, has exploded and changed. The amount of pumps, the type of pumps. Biggest change is probably that there's so many different sizes of flanges that make a huge difference.
Okay.
The quality of pumps.
Okay.
Just availability of pumps. Everything.
Yeah. Now you have the
skyrocketed.
wireless pumps.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of different things that can be really, really helpful if you're in the car and you want to pump and you don't have to think about it. It's like its own machine and you don't even have to plug it in.
Okay.
So there's lots of options. And if someone wants to pump, we're going to talk about all the different options in your price point. And sizing is important and how to use the pump so it doesn't hurt you and doesn't damage you. I would always suggest double pumping. So you're not doing one. Like there's so many different things that we can make it efficient. We can make it, listen, nobody wants to pump.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be miserable.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be painful. It can be, for some people, really quick and relatively easy.
I wish I had you.
I wish I had me
when I was feeding my kids.
I wish I had me when I was not me when I was feeding.
Just solely for information, even, like not because I had so much trouble, but just for the information,
Yeah, it's great to get informed and knowing. I like options because if I don't have options and I feel backed into a corner about something, I'm not going to feel good about it. Correct. So I think that goes for baby feeding in general. I'm going to give you your platter of options and you can choose what's right for you as long as everybody's safe. Safe and secure is, top priority. And then under that, choosing what you decide of the menu.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Naomi. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you again soon.
We shall.
Thanks.